Okay, let's unpack this. You're in trucking right now. It probably feels like things are moving, uh, well, faster than a loaded rig downhill with no Jake brake.
Yeah, yeah, that's one way to put it.
New challenges, new opportunities, but honestly, a lot of it feels like just chaos.
Right.
How do you even keep up?
It's incredibly challenging. I mean, every single day there's news about market shifts or regulatory talk, these amazing tech advances. And yeah, unfortunately, those persistent threats like fraud and crime,
Right.
staying informed isn't just something you can do anymore. It feels like it's absolutely essential,
Yeah.
for keeping your wheels on the road, literally and metaphorically.
That's exactly our mission today. We've sifted through a whole stack of recent sources, articles, reports, stuff straight from the industry chatter about what's happening right now. Our goal, cut through that noise for you, find the really important nuggets, connect the dots, and help you figure out what all this fast change actually means for your life, your livelihood out there.
Yeah, and we're diving into a bit of everything. Some worrying financial scams targeting truckers, those big shifts in how companies operate, the whole tech thing.
Driverless trucks?
Driverless trucks, exactly. And even what's being done, or trying to be done, about cargo crime. Each source gives us a piece of the puzzle, showing these different forces at play.
And we're going to look at these pieces in a way that hopefully connects them, shows you how they might affect your daily run, maybe your long-term plans,
Right.
and helps you feel maybe a bit more in control amidst all the turbulence.
Yeah.
Think of it as your shortcut to getting informed with maybe a few surprises along the way. Let's roll.
Okay, well, we kind of have to start with the tough one.
Mm-hmm.
The financial sharks circling the industry. It's a harsh reminder from these sources that not every threat is external.
Yeah.
Some folks leverage inside knowledge or they exploit the very systems truckers rely on every day.
And these stories are just so frustrating because they hit people just trying to make an honest buck. One report details this disturbing case out of Kentucky, a couple running a pretty slick scam targeting freight factoring companies.
That's right. And this wasn't random. They really understood how factoring works, and they used that, set up multiple shell companies, made them look legit.
Like real trucking operations.
Exactly. Then they'd generate fake invoices, fake load documents for freight that just, well, it never existed.
But here's the part that gets really alarming. The source points out they didn't just make up fake names. To seem totally legit, they used stolen identities. Real, valid DOT numbers, MC numbers from actual trucking businesses.
Identity theft was a big part of it.
That's scary.
Absolutely. Those DOT and MC numbers are like your fingerprint in the system, right? Required for interstate work.
Yeah.
By using stolen real ones, they got past the first checks and managed to submit those fake docs to factoring companies. Collected tens of thousands upfront on bogus invoices, juggling different aliases, different shell companies to keep it going.
So how did it all fall apart? Using real DOT numbers sounds like it'd make them hard to catch.
It definitely added complexity, yeah. But eventually, the factoring companies started seeing patterns. Loads supposedly delivered, but you couldn't reach the broker or shipper to verify. Documents late, inconsistent. When multiple factoring firms saw similar red flags, maybe tied to slightly different company names but linked patterns, they started talking.
Oh, okay.
Complaints went federal, investigation kicked off.
And the digital breadcrumbs led back to them.
Pretty much. Digital trails, bank records, communications. Trace it back to the couple. They eventually pleaded guilty. Significant prison time plus restitution orders.
Okay, hang on. For anyone maybe newer or who hasn't used it, what is freight factoring exactly? Can you break that down simply?
Sure. Think of it like a vital cash flow tool, especially for owner-operators, smaller fleets. Instead of waiting, 30, 60, maybe 90 days for a broker or shipper to pay up after you deliver.
Right, that can be a long wait.
Too long sometimes.
Yeah.
So you sell that invoice to a factoring company. They give you a big chunk upfront, say 97% often within hours.
Okay.
Then when the broker finally pays the full invoice, the factoring company takes their fee, that 3% difference, and you're done. It's basically a payday advance for truckers.
That sounds incredibly useful, which is why this scam is so damaging then.
Precisely. When fraudsters exploit it like this, it's not just the factoring companies getting hurt. It makes everyone suspicious.
Right.
It means legit carriers trying to use factoring honestly might face tougher rules, higher fees, more scrutiny, just because these bad actors made the whole system riskier.
Oof. It really does make it harder for the good guys doing everything right. So the takeaway here is pretty sharp. Protect your DOT and MC numbers like they're your social security number.
Absolutely. And vet everyone, brokers, factors, anyone you do business with. Scammers aren't just outsiders. This shows they can be insiders using industry knowledge against you. Stay alert.
And that wasn't the only big financial red flag in the sources, was it? There was another piece about a trucking CEO sentenced for a massive Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, a huge one. $54 million. Defrauded something like 2,000 investors.
54 million. 2,000 people. That's just staggering. How did someone pull that off in trucking?
Well, like most Ponzi schemes, it fed on trust and the promise of crazy high returns. The CEO claimed investors would make exceptional profits by investing in trucking assets, contracts.
Painted a rosy picture.
Oh yeah, booming, super profitable operation. The reality, most of the trucks, the trailers, the big contracts he claimed, totally fabricated. Phantom assets.
So he was just paying early investors with money from the new ones coming in.
Exactly. The classic pyramid. Early payouts make it look real, look successful, which lures in more people, bringing the cash needed to pay off the earlier folks. But no real profit engine underneath.
That's just devastating for those 2,000 investors.
It is. And the money loss is only part of it. This kind of big, splashy fraud casts a shadow over the whole industry.
I can see that. Makes lenders, banks nervous, right? Harder for legit small fleets or owner-operators to get financing.
Exactly. And the source pointed out even employees got caught in the mess. Drivers, dispatchers, working for what they thought was a solid company.
Right.
Then it collapses. Suddenly they're jobless, maybe with unpaid wages or tax issues tied to the scheme. It's awful.
So the big takeaway from this story, if you're thinking of investing or partnering up, be incredibly skeptical of promises that just sound too good. Huge guaranteed returns. Massive red flag.
Absolutely. And demand proof. Real paperwork. Titles, VIN numbers for equipment, checkable contracts. Don't let anyone pressure you into investing fast.
Right.
The article sadly notes, while this one was huge, these kinds of scams have popped up in trucking before.
These fraud stories are tough, but they really hammer home a point. Thriving today takes more than just great driving skills. You need sharp business sense, to have vigilance against scams, and frankly, being willing to question things.
And these direct threats are happening alongside these other bigger systemic changes, reshaping everything. It's a lot to juggle all at once.
Okay, let's dive into those larger shifts then.
No.
Beyond the deliberate fraud, there are these fundamental forces changing how freight moves. Technology, big company strategies.
Yep.
These aren't abstract theories. They hit routes, jobs, who gets the loads.
And a massive one on everyone's radar is driverless trucks. It's accelerating. One source mentioned legislative pushes, like a U.S. senator trying to fast-track autonomous vehicle laws.
Right.
And at the same time, companies are making real moves.
It's like Torc Robotics, owned by Daimler, right?
Sure.
Huge name. They just opened a dedicated autonomous truck hub down in Fort Worth, Texas. That's not just R&D.
Not at all. It's a fully operational base designed specifically to manage and support real freight runs using autonomous trucks.
Why Texas?
Well, it's strategic, favorable laws, huge freight volume, and, generally better weather than, say, the Rockies in winter.
Makes sense.
Their focus is hub to hub. So the autonomous truck handles the long highway part between distribution centers.
And that legislation you mentioned, the goal is to smooth the path for this. Streamline approvals, maybe get around old rules meant for human drivers, like needing a steering wheel.
Exactly. Push commercial use faster. Proponents, usually tech folks, big logistics companies, argue it's great for safety. Less human error, less fatigue, fewer accidents. They also frame it as solving the driver shortage and helping the U.S. stay competitive in logistics.
But what are the drivers themselves thinking? The sources captured that, right?
Oh, yeah. The biggest concern, no surprise, is job displacement. The fear that trucks running 24/7 autonomously will just drastically cut the need for humans on long hauls.
And skepticism about the tech.
Huge skepticism. Can it really handle the real world? Sudden construction, crazy weather, erratic drivers, situations where human instinct is key.
Right. Stuff happens out there.
They admit humans will still be needed for the first last mile, getting to and from the hub or troubleshooting, for now. But the long-term worry is definitely there.
And the wider industry response. Sounds split.
Very fractured. Tech companies, thrilled. Teamsters Union, fighting it hard, job loss, safety concerns. Fleets. It depends. Smaller guys are nervous about the cost, the competition. Bigger carriers, they see potential cost savings, efficiency down the road.
What's striking, like the source says, is that Torc Hub means this isn't sci-fi anymore. It's happening now. Real loads, major freight state. This will affect routes, driver demand on certain lanes, pay structures eventually. They might not replicate human instinct yet, but billions are going into teaching them.
It's a clear signal. Drivers really need to think about how this acceleration could impact their careers, in the coming years, not dismiss it.
And speaking of shifts hitting who hauls what, another big move reported, XPO LTL.
Yes, this is significant. XPO, huge player in LTL, is making a strategic call to cut its third-party line haul miles way down, to a historic low, actually.
So basically, they're drastically reducing the long-distance runs they farm out to other carriers or owner-operators?
Exactly, bringing that work in-house, using their own company drivers, their own trucks for those terminal-to-terminal long hauls whenever possible.
And the reason? Why the shift?
Mostly cost control and service consistency. Outsourcing can get expensive, especially at peak times. Plus, you have less direct control over scheduling, routes, service quality compared to using your own people and trucks.
Okay.
By insourcing, they want tighter operations, better data, more predictable costs.
Feels like a big change. Outsourcing overflow used to be standard, right? Especially for the big guys during busy seasons.
It absolutely was. It was how they managed swings in demand without owning way too many trucks or employing drivers for the absolute peak. XPO is clearly investing heavily to handle most of their freight, even crunch time, internally.
If they pull it off.
You can bet other large LTL carriers are watching closely.
So let's follow the ripple effect. Who wins, who loses when a giant like XPO does this?
Well, XPO corporate wins lower costs, more control. Their company drivers probably win maybe more consistent miles, job security with an XPO. Shippers might win with more reliable service.
And the losers?
The contracted carriers, the owner-operators, lease to partners who relied on that outsourced XPO freight. Maybe smaller brokers who moved that overflow. They take the hit. Lost revenue, lost lanes.
This really highlights a broader trend, doesn't it? Big carriers consolidating, investing in tech, trying to control more of the process directly. Often means less reliance on the little guys who used to provide that flexible capacity.
It's a very clear signal. If your business heavily relies on overflow or outsourced loads from the big players, XPO's move screams you need a backup plan, or you need to diversify your freight sources before those lanes potentially vanish.
So both automation and these big corporate moves like XPOs point towards, well, maybe fewer easy miles for independents or smaller partners than before.
Yeah.
These aren't just business news items. They directly signal potential changes to where your next load comes from and what it pays.
And this loops back perfectly to something Hervey from Life, as a trucker mentioned, which popped up in one source.
Yeah.
This idea that you have to see these issues from all angles.
Right.
Understand the big picture tech, corporate goals, but crucially, see how it impacts your angle, your job, your income, your future.
Speaking of protecting your income, your future, let's touch on another direct threat drivers face constantly.
Yeah.
Crime.
Absolutely. While those other shifts are systemic, strategic, there's the immediate danger of cargo theft. And truckers are right there on the front lines. There's some effort to tackle this higher up.
Yeah, one source talks about a new bill, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, getting support in Congress and from groups like the ATA.
And the key word there is organized. This bill isn't aimed at, random smash and grabs. It's targeting sophisticated rings that steal in bulk, move it, fence it, resell it, often online.
How would the bill work?
It pushes for better coordination. FBI, DHS, state, local law enforcement, getting them to share info and resources to go after these rings effectively, breaking down those silos.
Okay.
It also aims for tougher penalties for the ringleaders, the organizers, and wants more support for victims like data sharing to help track stolen goods, spot patterns.
And why is the ATA backing it so strongly?
Billions lost to cargo theft every year. That cost hits everyone. Higher insurance for carriers, more security expenses, affects freight rates.
Right.
Plus, the ATA stresses the danger to drivers. You can get threatened, hurt during these thefts.
Yeah.
They see the bill as a needed step for more serious, coordinated enforcement.
What are actual truckers saying about it, according to the source? Is there buy-in?
Generally, yeah, a feeling of, it's about time. Many have seen it, felt the impulse, so they welcome the focus. But there's also skepticism.
About whether it'll actually work on the ground.
Exactly. Will it translate to effective local enforcement? Do local cops have the resources, the training for organized crime? And some drivers say, yeah, punishing thieves is good, but we need more focus on prevention. Better security at stops, yards, warehouses.
The source made a strong point, calling it not just theft, but a war on working people.
That really captures the ripple effect, doesn't it? Cargo gets stolen, drivers lose pay, carriers face insurance hikes or lose business, shippers look for safer options, costs go up. affects consumers eventually, and truckers are the ones physically carrying the targets in this war.
So this bill, maybe a good step, recognizes the problem. But real impact depends on enforcement and more attention to prevention on the ground. It shows even basic load safety is tied into these bigger debates.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. We've got sophisticated fraud, the fast pace of automation, big carriers changing strategy and cutting outsourced miles, plus this constant fight against organized crime. The sources paint a clear picture. It's an industry under huge pressure, going through fundamental change.
It can definitely feel like you're just one driver facing all these huge external forces you can't control.
Exactly. But this is where that core message, the one echoed across the sources and by folks like Hervey, becomes so vital. You can't control all those external things.
Right.
You can't stop a scammer trying, can't halt autonomous tech development, can't force XPO strategy, can't bust a crime ring single-handedly. But you can control how you manage your time and how you prepare.
That's the powerful pivot, right? Shifting focus from just managing hours for the logbook or the company to managing your own time, especially off-duty time, wisely for yourself.
Absolutely. The call to action here isn't just about reacting, it's proactive preparation. The sources mentioned learning new skills. One even talked about understanding, maybe using tools like AI in logistics or for your own side ventures.
And crucially, using that off-duty time when you're not driving to build other income streams online.
Yes. The why behind that is maybe the most critical takeaway. Building other revenue. It's a shield, a vital one. Protects you from freight rate swings.
Yeah.
If a company folds or a big lane disappears like those XPO miles, having other income softens that blow.
It gives you options.
Yeah.
Helps you build towards retirement on your terms, not just depending on market forces or tech timelines or what big companies decide to do next week. It's about personal resilience, building your own hustle.
And that proactive approach, it ties directly into feeling respected, supported, being informed like we hope this deep dive helps with, is empowering. But taking steps for your benefit, learning skills, diversifying income, that gives you agency, control over your own path. That sense of control, self-reliance, it's inherently empowering. Helps you feel more secure, more respected, no matter how turbulent things get. And the sources do point towards resources available to help with exactly this kind of preparation.
So the bottom line is clear. Trucking is changing fast. Huge challenges, fraud, automation, shifting strategies, crime. But understanding these changes, seeing them from all angles, like Hervey says, that's step one, absolutely essential.
And instead of just feeling like you're subject to these forces, the scams, the robots, the cuts, the crime, the real question becomes, how can you use your time, your skills, the knowledge you gain to build a future that's more resilient, more secure,
More ahead as unknowns, no doubt. But your preparation for whatever comes next, that doesn't have to be one of them. This deep dive was all about arming you with those essential insights from the latest sources.
Right.
Hoping you feel informed, respected, and better equipped to think about your next move in this really challenging, always evolving industry.